Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, the channel on YouTube for all things PSG in English. Please subscribe. Today I'm getting excited. You can see the title just here. Yes, this is the reason. Yesterday, Newcastle player Alexander Isak came out and said that it'd be open to moving clubs. And I think, obviously he's one of the top strikers in the world right now, and a player who I think is massively exciting. And not only do I think it'd be a great fit for PSG, I think him going to PSG actually makes all the sense in the world. So let me catch you up on those details and explain to you guys why I'm getting excited and why I think Isak to PSG could be the big summer transfer saga of this year. So, Alexander Isak, power forward from Newcastle United, 25-year-old, Swedish international and Swedish national. He's a big meaty dude. He's 1 meter 94, so I always hate translating in feet in my head, but probably like 6.3, 6.4, something like this. No, 6.3 probably. So quite tall, very lean. He's not very heavy. I think he's in the he's around 69 kg. So pretty thin guy, but obviously he's got a lot of size to him. He's going to be turning 26 in September. He's been in Newcastle for I think about 3 years at this point. Previously he was in Real Sociedad and previously he was in Dortmund. And I think he's one of those players who exploded onto the world stage in recent years. And he's really established himself as not only one of the most exciting strikers in the game, but also like one of the most versatile and one of the most talented in every different facet of the games. He's, definitely a top-tier finisher who can, stay cold as ice in front of goal, sink in shots from any part of the area and beyond the area. He can score with both feet, with his header due to his size. And yeah, he's got the composure of the best players to really sink in a lot of goal. Last season he scored 24, I think, in the Premier League. Let me check that. He played 34 games, scored 23 times in the Premier League, and I think he had a few assists as well. If I think like 6 or 7 assists. Yeah, 6 assists. 23 goals, 6 assists, 29 goal contribution in 34 games in the Premier League. Season before that, he was on 21 goals and 2 assists. And the season before that, for his first season in Newcastle, he was on 10 goals and 1 assist. So, a player who's been on an upward trajectory, who's obviously one of the talents that all of the top teams have been looking at. Liverpool was reportedly interested in him all the way to sign him Ekitike. And it's actually like a Liverpool approach that triggered his latest media declaration. He's been in Newcastle for 3 years, but I think he has 3 years of contract remaining. So he does have still a bit of time on his contract, but his salary is not massive. He's on about 7 million euro a year, which, if you compare to like in PSG, Donnarumma is on 12. We've got a bunch of players who are like between 12 and 15 million. So if you were to move to PSG, obviously we'd be able to increase the salary a fair bit. And yeah, like I said, like he's like the archetype of a striker in being able to be very realistic and very clinical in front of goal. But he is a very complete striker in the sense that he is fairly technical. He can pass, he can dribble. He's very smart in terms of his movement and him seeing the game. He knows how to position himself to really like take the best of his defender, positioning himself in the areas that they don't see or that they don't cover. He can drop back into midfield to create space at the back of the defense. He can both act as a target man when the team is in possession and really like hold that number 9 position in the middle of defense to draw opposing players on him. Or he can like be more in movement and more volatile and drop back into midfield, take runs. He can play on the left wing as well. He's got a lot of speed, and so yeah, he's the full package, man. He's really like he's the full package. I think the last point, which also I think is very exciting, is that he's a player who's known for participating in the defensive tasks. And so, he's not an Mbappe who's just going to sit up front and wait for the ball to come to him. He's going to participate in the game. He's going to be helping his teammate, and he's definitely, going to pull his weight within the team. So yeah, sounds pretty idyllic. In terms of his status, like I said, he came out yesterday to say that he was open to moving clubs, which is a huge statement for a player. There's been a lot of conversation during this transfer window so far, especially in relation to him moving to a bigger Premier League club. So Liverpool was really on top of the list and might still well be there. But also Arsenal was looking at him, Chelsea for a little bit was looking at him, Man United has been linked. And there's also been a fair bit of conversation around him in Saudi Arabia. And, the potential of him moving to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia. If you remember, Newcastle is actually owned by Saudi Arabia. So there is a connection there. And the reality of it is that, he's a big money transfer. And so, and a top world-class player, and so the Saudi Arabian teams are salivating at that. He doesn't have any. Newcastle doesn't have any major reasons to sell him. I think Newcastle would very much like to keep him within their squad. They've been talking and indicating that they need to sit down and talk about a contract extension for him, increasing his salary and so on. But apparently nothing has happened, and that's also why the player is getting frustrated with them. He's getting the sense that as a player and looking at his development over the past 2-3 years, he's kind of outsped and outranked the development of the club, and now he's a world-class striker and a world-class player in a team that realistically doesn't have much hope of winning a Premier League or going far into the Champions League or racking in the trophy. He helped them win the cup last year, which, generously might be like the best he can do with Newcastle, at least within the current setup. And so that's also one of the reasons why, he's been one of those players who's been considered for a move to a bigger team. So a lot of conversation this transfer window has been around Liverpool. And the reason for that is that, we knew Liverpool was in the market for attacking players. They brought in Wirtz from Leverkusen at the beginning of the window for 150 million euros. Most recently, they brought in Ekitike from Frankfurt for 95 million euros. They still have Salah, and I think they extended his contract last year, so Salah is still there for the time being. But Luis Diaz is a player that might very well be on his way out, and that Bayern Munich is looking at. Darwin Núñez is obviously a player who hasn't really lived up to his promises since he signed to Liverpool, and so a player that they're very, very open to unloading, or at least very open to the idea of bringing in someone over him. And so I think Arne Slot has been looking at Isak as one of those players who can really be a step change in terms of quality in his attack. And we're talking about a Liverpool team that won the Premier League last year. So they already have a great team, but they've been really investing a lot of money in different positions to take that team to the next level and be able to not only retain their Premier League title, but also make a challenge and make a run in the Champions League as well. Which obviously, I don't know why someone beat them to it last year. Who could that have been? And so in that context, Isak was one of the players that they were looking at. They brought in Ekitike, I think, they brought him in a couple of days ago. The word on the street and what I've seen is that before finalizing Ekitike, in the middle of last week, they did reach out to Newcastle to see if there would be any possibility of striking a deal on Isak. Newcastle said no, and I think that's also what's bubbled the frustration on Isak's end, and why he came out saying he'd be open to a move. I think for him, he very much would have wanted Newcastle to be talking with Liverpool, and with Ekitike coming on board, he obviously saw a big chance for him to join the Merseyside team. flying away in front of his very eyes. And so there's frustration there. The question mark now when it comes to Liverpool is whether they'd be able to go back to the player and still afford him even after signing Ekitike, and whether that would make sense. It's not impossible. And, Liverpool obviously is ranking the player so highly that it wouldn't be surprising for them to try to work out something. But at the same time, I think they already spent upwards of 400 million euros this transfer window. Liverpool is very, very sensible financially, and they've got a lot of money in the bank. Obviously, Premier League revenue being what it is, 400 million euros is a big amount, but it doesn't mean that they're completely spent out or won't be able to spend for the next 5 years. They still have opportunities, and they also have some players to sell and who still have value. So Luis Diaz, if he goes to Bayern Munich, you can realistically expect to make 60, 70 million euro from him. Darwin Nunez, it'd be I'm guessing in the 30, 40 million euros probably. So just there, you already have 100 million euros. Isak would probably cost somewhere between 160 to 200 million euro. So we're talking big signing. But financially not entirely impossible for Liverpool as long as they can offload players. And I think the caveat there is that I don't think Newcastle would be massively excited at the prospect of selling their best player to another team in the same league. And for them, they much rather would send him somewhere else and just not have to face him multiple times in the coming season. So we'll see, but I think that's a realistic assumption to make. And so if not Liverpool, where else could he go? For a transfer of this size and a player of this magnitude, there's not a million of different options on the table, ultimately. Liverpool would be the leading contender. Arsenal has also been on the market for a number 9, but they're basically finalizing the Gyökeres deal that they've been working on for the better part of 6 months. And finally bringing that player on board for a big chunk of cash. They also brought in Madueke from Chelsea. They just brought in Mosquera in defense. So I think, Arsenal has been active. They might have more money for it, but it sounds like with Gyökeres, they probably found the one that they wanted for number 9, unless things turn around completely. But yeah, we'll for now, it doesn't feel like Arsenal would be a top option for him. After that, Man City, there's been absolutely no chatter for him, and I think obviously they've got Haaland up front, so I don't see Man City wanting to add another number 9 on top of Haaland, even if Isak can play on the left, technically, it's still not his best position. So it doesn't really feel that Man City would be an option here. Chelsea was active before the Club World Cup, and they bought in Delap and they bought in Joao Pedro. So as much as Chelsea loves having 50 different players in their squad, it seems that now they've got what they need in attack, and if anything, they're looking at Xavi Simons right now as a potential recruit. And yeah, after that, Man United would be interested, but they also spend big amount on Mbomo and a couple of other players. And realistically, I don't really see why Isak would leave Newcastle United to go to a team that finished way below them in the league, and who's been going through so much upheaval in recent years, and that's so not stable and not necessarily a place where he can perform at his best, if you ask me. So then it leaves the question of outside of England and outside of the Premier League. Like I said, Al Hilal has been really talked about a lot around the player. It makes sense. Newcastle's owner are Saudis. Al Hilal is in Saudi Arabia. We've seen it before, kind of somewhat inflated transfer deals between the two. And, using that as a way of just putting more money into the hands of Newcastle without hurting anyone. I don't know. I think for a player who's 25 years old, I really question what he would go and do in Saudi Arabia. And I think for him, I don't think it makes much sense as he's part of his career to be leaving Europe and leaving the top leagues. it might be more of a owner strategy, but yeah, I don't see the player being really interested in that. And so then, like, what other leagues in Europe? Italy has nowhere near the amount to do it. In Spain, Barcelona and Real Madrid don't have the money either. Real Madrid, like, probably could if they really stretch themselves, but like, they probably would need to sell Vinicius first, which not anywhere close to happening. And then, like, would you really? I mean, I think it'd be a good addition, don't get me wrong, and I think, like, if you push Mbappe out on the left wing, maybe that's a case to make for Isak as a number 9. It seems a little bit far-fetched, honestly. Not completely impossible, but honestly, like, I wouldn't rank it as very likely at this point. And those two are basically the only teams in Spain who could go anywhere near him. And then in Germany, like, would Bayern Munich go for him? Also, they could. It feels like it's way too expensive for their usual transfer policies. They've been more focused on wingers as well because they still have Kane up front. And honestly, like, Bayern has such a big rebuild ahead of themselves and so many different positions that they need to strengthen. I very much doubt that they'd be willing to spend their whole transfer budget on just one player for a position where they already have one of their best players. So it wouldn't make sense. So then that leaves PSG. And I think that's where it gets interesting. Because first, like, PSG would absolutely, like, financially be able to complete the transfer. We do have a lot of money in the bank between the Champions League run, the Club World Cup, some of the players that we're aiming to sell, like Colomwani. We definitely have some cash in the bank, and also we don't have that many needs to work on for this mercato. We do have an excellent starting 11 that already just won the Champions League, and so we're essentially looking at, strengthening in with 1, 2, 3 recruits. If you look at the most recent information that's coming out, and most of them coming in as substitute to strengthen the depth of the squad. And like I said, like, I think ultimately we do have a very strong starting 11 that the club is keen to build on and really trust and see how those players will develop and continue to potentially win together. And so for us, if you look at the football world and what's out there, there's really not that many players that you could bring in that would make sense, but also really, like, be immediately additive to the team. And I think Isak is one of those rare names where, like, it ticks both boxes. The question that's been coming up a lot, and what I've heard a lot of people mention, is the idea that Luis Enrique doesn't want to play with a number 9. Fair enough. This year, like, we put Dembele as a false 9. We've been very successful with this. Dembele has had a huge impact, both in terms of his scoring contribution, but also in terms of how much he's contributed to the game, dropping into midfield and helping, like, create space, moving the ball up, but also doing that amazing work of pressing the keeper, being that first line of defense on central defense. And so he's brought a lot of density to the position, of diversity in terms of what that player does. And honestly, like, I can see Isak, because he's got that depth of playing, being able to emulate that kind of approach as well. I think he'd be probably more clinical and more consistent in terms of his scoring than a Dembele could. Personally, I'm still worried that, one day Dembele is going to wake up and he's going to score a lot less than he has in the past 6 months. And I think, a player like Isak, I've got all the faith in the world that he'd be a 30 to 40 goal a season striker without, like, a shadow of a doubt. So that's definitely something that you want. And I think for us, having a player who really has this ability to play different style of games, who can be a pivot and a pressing forward and a target man when we're in possession and the opposing team is trying to park the bus and defend very low, but the same player can also make move on the pitch, make runs, dribble, get out of his area, and roam around to create opportunities, I think it'd be very valuable and make it be a very interesting addition in terms of tactical flexibility, and us not turning into a team that's too predictable in terms of the way we attack. And so that's why I think it'd be an interesting move. Obviously Luis Enrique has a very personal view on what a number 9 should be, but he's not opposed to playing a number 9. And if you look back, like I remember something he said in the media earlier this season, and I think it was before the Man City game, and journalists were telling him like, "Oh, why aren't you playing with a number 9? Look at Man City, like they won when they brought in Haaland and started playing with a 9 as well. So look, Guardiola has done it, so it is the way." And I think Luis Enrique's answer wasn't like, "Oh, I'm completely opposed to the idea of a number 9 and it's completely stupid and get out of the room." It was, if you have Haaland in your team, I'm more than happy to play him as a number 9. And so it's more a question of, do you have a player who's so good and able to really achieve the different things that I want from a number 9? Then I'm more than happy to do that. And I think Isak is exactly the kind of player who would fit that. And finally, in terms of the recruits that we're looking at, I think it's interesting as well because obviously, we have a line of attack that's relatively dense, where we do have quite a few players. We typically have 4 players who are nail-on starters and share the three starting 11 position between Kvara, Barcola, Dembele, and Doué. And then after that, we've got Ramos, who for all of his flaws still scored more than 20 goals from the bench and with a relatively long injury this season, and Kang-in Lee. So we do have 6 players for 3 positions. So it's not the part of the pitch where we do have gaps in terms of substitutes and so on. That being said, the initial chatter on our mercato was that PSG was definitely open to the idea of unloading Kang-in Lee in particular. And so in that context was looking for a player who could play on the right wing and ideally left-footed, and someone who could bring something different to what Doué was doing. So that's absolutely not Isak, obviously. But the interesting part is that as the weeks went on during this summer window, what we're hearing from the club is less to do with a right winger with a left foot, but more about potentially adding a versatile attacker who can cover different positions. And I think, if you had Isak, obviously, like Dembele can move back to the right wing, Isak can cover on the left, so Barcola can also go on the right. So the great place is that our players can all play in different positions and different roles. And so I think he would fit that bill of adding someone who's versatile, who adds depth to our squad, and even really improves our starting 11 straight away, and offers different tactical options and different opportunities for Luis Enrique. And so that's why I think in that context, it would make all of the sense in the world. And honestly, I'll probably close with this. I wouldn't be surprised if it was already being talked about, even if we haven't heard any rumors, even if nothing has kind of filtered through. But if I'm Isak, I'm a player of Liverpool. I've been frustrated because the team is not growing as fast as me. I'm a world-class player. I want to do more. I'm 25, so it's kind of that right moment to go on to really a top-tier football team and win the leagues, win the Champions Leagues, win a potential Ballon d'Or. I don't know, whatever his ambition might be. I see Liverpool trying to get me, and I see my team refusing to even discuss it, and at the same time not really starting to tell me about contract extension and more salary and so on. I can see the frustration, but I still don't think as a player he would go into the media and say he'd be open to leaving Newcastle unless he knows that there are options on the table that would work for him and would work for Newcastle. And ultimately, I think the options that would work for Newcastle would be outside of England, and as we've seen, that basically Saudi Arabia or us, and the options that would work for the player would be Liverpool, Arsenal, and us. And so if you look at the sliver that's crossing in between those two sides in the Venn diagram is PSG. So yeah, so I honestly I don't know if it's something that's gonna happen. Maybe like I'm full of it, and tomorrow is gonna be signing in Liverpool. But I'm definitely getting excited because I think a lot of stars are aligning into making this not only something that'd be great, not only something that'd be interesting for both sides, whether it's Isak, whether it's PSG, or whether it's Newcastle. But also, yeah, something that sounds pretty realistic and pretty credible and would make a lot of sense ultimately. So I don't know. Once again, it's transfer window. It's all opinions. I don't have the phone number of Luis Campos. By the way, Luis, if you're watching, just call me. Call me. We'll chat. But yeah, it feels like there's something there. So we'll see. We'll keep you guys posted in the coming days, weeks, months, however long it might take. We might be at the beginning of the summer, like transfer saga of this year. A transfer like this obviously doesn't get concluded in 3 days. So strap yourselves in, guy. It is starting. It is happening. Whether it's going to be to PSG or somewhere else, or even staying in Newcastle, I feel like we're only starting to hear about Alexander Isak, and it is going to be one of the stories of the summer. So yeah, for now, like that's what I had. Let me know what you guys think about him. Do you like? I think everyone likes the player, so I'm not even gonna ask that. I know that everyone would want him to come to PSG, so I'm not even gonna ask that. Do you guys think it's realistic? Am I like full of it? Did I convince you? Were you like on the fence before? Let me know what you think. And yeah, like I said, we'll be talking about it more. So for now, like, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. The button is just here. Bonus task as well. After you hit that subscribe button, you can hit the bell so you get notified every time I put out a video. And with Isak, without Isak, in Newcastle, in Paris, mercato is crazy. So ici c'est Paris.